All right, here we are, roughly 2 days away from the Lions facing the Green Bay Packers in Sunday Night Football. A huge game for both teams. We're going to talk about 5 reasons why the Detroit Lions can pull off this big victory in Lambeau Field and send Aaron Rodgers packing for the sidelines, and his season will be over. So let's dive into that. Talk about Houston earning an award. Talk about Ford Field going through a little bit of a renovation, and perhaps just a little bit more in today's Lions Talk Live. Well, greetings and salutations to everybody out there in YouTube land. I'm your host, once again, Dan Thornton. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in to make Lions Talk Live part of your day. If you have not yet subscribed to Lions Talk Live, please consider doing so. It takes you a second, maybe a second and a half, to hit the subscription button, a thumbs up button, and if you want, maybe even leave an interactive comment in the section below. Now, before we get into the 5 reasons why I think the Lions can win this Sunday, I did want to give you a little bit of news and notes on a couple other topics. One, if you were not aware, James Houston did win the Pepsi Defensive Player of the Week for his performance last week. The breakout rookie player had 3 sacks, forced a fumble, and just basically was a pain in the butt for the Chicago Bears to deal with throughout all of last weekend's game. A little bit of other news. Ford Field, which had been scheduled for 2024 renovation as far as its playing field, is going to go ahead and be proactive. Take care of that in February of this year to get it done and have it all set and prepped for the 2023 season. It's nice to see the Ford family is stepping up their game, being more reactive and proactive, helping make things happen faster than they perhaps did in prior seasons. So, with that being said, now let's get into the deep dive on how the Lions will win this potential game weekend. All right, if you're new to Lions Talk Live and don't know how we do this, we're going to start with number 5 and work our way up to number 1. So the number 5 reason why the Detroit Lions will win this weekend in Green Bay is going to be this. It's going to be the play of our defensive line. Trending upwards for, maybe since the first time we played the Green Bay Packers. The Lions' defensive line has gotten better and better and better. Yes, we all are aware of what happened in Carolina, but I'd like to believe that's more of an anomaly than the norm. What we have been able to see out of the Lions' pass rush and also play against the run overall is that it's gotten better and better and better since the start of the season. Now you add in players like Houston, who did not play against the Packers, just like Romeo Okwara, and I think Aaron Rodgers and the gang are going to be facing a little bit more of a pass rush than they did last time. Well, that pass rush, the first time, did get to him, not always with sacks, but did get in his face, did get pressures and hits on Rodgers. It's my belief if the Lions can get to him early and often, a guy who hasn't played great during this 4-game winning streak might be under a little bit more duress and might possibly commit a turnover or two. While the pass rush is great and the idea of everybody getting home on Rodgers would be awesome, let's be very fair. The Packers are going to come out like they have during this 4-game winning streak. They're going to look to pound the ball. If Detroit sticks to what they did the first game, the Lions are going to move 3 guys into the center, over covering the center and both guards to try to make sure the Packers cannot run up the middle. That means that the onus is really going to be on people like Houston and Okwara, among others, to have outside contain. Will the Lions drop an 8th person in the box like they did the first game? I believe they probably will, especially if throwing conditions aren't ideal, which they should be okay, but because of the temperature, you never know. I mean, they might have to force the Packers to throw the ball more like they did in the first game. That's why having Deshaun Elliott back would be a big plus. It's trending like he will be. All right, moving on to reason number 4 as to how the Lions will pull off a win this Sunday in Green Bay. That's going to be this. It's going to be play of the offensive line in the running game. I believe our offensive line is trending upwards and has been throughout much of the season since about the middle of the season. Since the middle of the season, you've heard me talk about on Lions Talk Live, Taylor Deckard's play overall has been very stellar, perhaps the best of his career. But Evan Brown, who is not traditionally a guard, has also started to develop and move into his position and appears to be becoming more and more comfortable. Well, don't get me wrong. I don't think Brown's ever going to be a road grader at guard. I do believe he's getting better and better with his hand placement and his body leverage on running plays. He's never going to be somebody who can just power somebody off the ball, but he is getting better at moving people off the ball without his power, with leverage and such. So it's my anticipation that this running game should be able to, especially in the first half, if they can just get 3.5 yards a carry, that's going to set up Detroit in one of their greatest strengths, and that's the play action game. But keeping with this reason, I believe that here you're going to see the Lions pound the ball between the guards and the center. It'll be probably a couple plays here and there where they get out wide, but it'll be the ground game. That'll be reason number 4. The Lions have an opportunity to win. Keeping on with that reason, though, I do want to point out that I believe the Lions are going to probably move Penei Sewell around, much like they did in the Minnesota game. It's my anticipation that obvious run plays, they're going to lean on him and his athletic ability. It feels to me that the Lions have been setting up a few more plays that we haven't seen yet with him moving around in the backfield. Doesn't mean we can't just line him up on the line and have him power people, but I would not be surprised if Ben Johnson and company have a few trick plays lined up their sleeves. Maybe Sewell at fullback. Now that would be something. Whatever it may be, the running game is going to be one of the most important parts of the game because it's going to allow us to eat up the clock, keep the ball on the ground in controlled settings while keeping Rodgers and company off the field. Yes, the Green Bay defense has really stepped up the latter part of this season, but they do have some holes in that line. Their linebacking core and secondary have played exceptionally well, while I do believe their defensive line overall can be gashed. The Packers are one of the league's best at blitzing other teams, but I believe the running game will be able to step up and provide a sound reason of optimism for all Detroit Lions fans. All right, we're going to keep on going up the chart here. Now we got reason number 3 why I think the Lions will have a win this Sunday. We talked about the running game. Now let's talk about the tight end position. Since the trade of T.J. Hockenson, the Lions' tight end position has virtually exploded on the field with a bunch of no-name guys that probably none of us could pick out of a lineup in a police station. We've got guys that are stepping up and making plays week in and week out. It seems like there's a different person every week. As odd as it is, it has put a lot of pressure on other teams. Instead of just having one guy to defend and then move on to the receivers, the Lions have been able to throw multiple tight end positions out onto the field and left a lot of defensive coordinators scratching their heads. Guys that nobody really knew about are now getting 2-3 touchdowns a game. You know, say what it is. Ben Johnson and company knew what they had with these guys and said we can move on from TJ. But the other part of it, other than the pass catching with the tight ends, and more importantly, is the run blocking with the tight ends. Our tight ends are some of the best in the league when it comes to this dynamic and stat. Lions tight ends have moved the ball upwards and forwards on running plays. It's no longer the days where you could see T.J. Hockenson getting blown off the line in Dallas, allowing a big hit on Jamal Williams right before the goal line. So with that being said, you got this reason. All right, we're going to move on to reason number 2, why I think the Lions will have an opportunity to win in Green Bay. And that's going to be this. It's going to be the play of, I'm going to double dip a little bit here, Jared Goff and the wide receiving core. They've been on fire throughout most of the last 2 months during the Lions' rise from the ashes like the Phoenix, and they are now on the cusp of having a winning season record-wise. The Lions' wide receivers, who were ultimately very banged up or unavailable in the first matchup, are now playing better and better and healthier. Jameson Williams, who we'll get into some more details with near the end of the video, has also progressed. It's been one of the reasons he hasn't seen the field more, his ability to pick up some of the nuances and route trees and establish a rhythm with Goff. But over time, that seems to be getting better and better. So I believe not only will St. Brown be a factor, but DJ Chark, Reynolds, and yes, Jameson Williams. The other part of that is the play of Goff. Obviously, he's been exceptional all year long, but since the first game against Green Bay, he hasn't thrown a pick. So if Goff and the receiving core can take some pressure off the defense by putting points up on the board, that's going to put the Packers into a situation they don't really want to be in during their winning streak. And that's Aaron Rodgers having to lead the offense throwing the ball more and more. All right, now let's move on to reason number one as to why I think the Detroit Lions will be able to pull off the win this Sunday. And this might be a shock to everybody, but it's going to be our secondary. To me, without a shadow of doubt, the most important unit on the field who has to play their best game of the season is the Detroit Lions secondary. Okudah and gang have got to come out, and when there are passing opportunities for the Packers, they've got to really limit what they get out of them. So Okudah, Jerry Jacobs, who was not playing the first game, along with the defensive front, really have to have a symbiotic relationship here. That defensive front can come up and put pressure on Rodgers better even than they did the first time. Then that secondary gets to cover for a less amount of time. The other part of the secondary, and perhaps the most important aspect, is that their ability to help out on running plays. In the last few weeks, and I get we're probably kicking the can here too much with what happened in Carolina, but the secondary is as much to blame for how the Panthers ran all over us as anybody else. The early part of the Chicago game, our secondary missed assignments, and that led to some of Justin Fields' big runs. These are things that can't happen this week. So we'll see what Aaron Glenn and company have in store for us, but it's my belief that Okudah, who has not played well since he's had the flu, I went back and did some looking at video. Before he got the flu 3 weeks ago, he was playing pretty well. Since then, you can just see something's off with him. So whatever it is, his body hasn't fully recovered, and he's struggling a little bit at times. Hopefully, he's getting better and better and able to play some of his best ball, just like Jerry Jacobs. The good thing both of these guys do give us are physical corners, not just in the passing game, but in run support. It's my belief if those two, along with Elliott and Joseph, can really help and maintain Green Bay to smaller gains in the run, then the pass becomes more obvious, and that's going to benefit the pass rush for Detroit while allowing the defensive secondary to not have to cover overly long. All right, well, a couple other things I want to throw at you guys before we get out here. You know, like we normally do say on these Friday videos, there's typically not a lot of news on Fridays for teams. So just throwing out a couple tips here. Ben Johnson did address the media yesterday in his presser and talked about why Jameson Williams isn't getting on the field more. And just like we alluded to a little bit earlier today, he's got to learn some of the nuances of the route tree that all NFL receivers and college receivers go through. What is a route tree? It's when you're given a play, you have to read the D and say, all right, I've got option A, B, C, or D as to where I'm going to go and release overall in a progression on your route. That takes time for any receiver to learn. Jameson Williams is facing a situation unlike all the other Lions rookies this year and last year, in that there is a ton of depth at receiver. You think about Aiden Hutchinson, there wasn't really a bunch of depth above him that he had to beat out. Same with Kirby Joseph until the injuries happened. He was a backup, but now he's in the starting role. Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously a year ago, Detroit really didn't have receivers, so he was able to matriculate his way up the depth chart. Jameson Williams is progressing. It's just he needs more time to learn some of those subtle nuances, and since there are better players or more experienced players currently ahead of him, he's having to develop while giving those guys their dues. All right, well, I'm going to wrap today's video up with all that. I hope you're all going to have a great weekend. I'm sure, like everybody, we're all going to get pumped and ready on Sunday for that Sunday night game. Big game it is indeed. We'll also be hearing later today from the NFL whether or not they're going to offer an 8th seed to both the AFC and NFC teams. If you aren't aware of what this is, because of the Monday night football game and some of the dynamics that have come out of that game with not being able to make up the Bills versus Bengals, the NFL is strongly considering offering an 8th seed in both sides of the brackets. And what that would mean for the Detroit Lions is they would no longer need Seattle to lose to get in. Simply put, if the NFL does offer this, the Lions just need to beat Green Bay and they are in the playoffs. So we'll wait and see what happens. But anyways, I want you all to enjoy your weekend. Take care. If you have not yet subscribed, please consider doing so. Leave a thumbs up if you have time, and maybe even a few thoughts in the comment section below. Take care. Remember, there's no Lions Talk Live on Saturday, so we'll see you all Sunday on another Lions Talk Live.